got a family report. So yours has both achievement and growth data for your students. So you'll see your student may have scored in the 60th percentile for achievement. That means they did better than 6 out of 10 kids who took that test. But their growth might be at 10%. So that lets me know, particularly if they were already in that 60th percent, it makes me question if they even should have been in the class in the first place. Let me tell you why. And I looked at your data. So we didn't have MAP scores for your student because they're coming from Jamaica. So we didn't have it. So when they took the test in the fall, we saw she's already average for math, but she's in a support math class. She didn't need to be in a support math class. She probably needed to be in a higher math class. I don't think she was challenged. And she was probably in a class with students who needed more support. She didn't.
As mentioned.
That's what the data tells me. So what I got to make sure that I work with the teacher in doing, she's higher. I need you to kind of ramp it up for her. And they do that, but I need a little bit more. I need more emphasis on, I think sometimes in those classes we put so much focus on the kids who are struggling, and we say, oh, they'll be fine. Mm-hmm. And they're just in there doing the work, but it's not challenging, so we need to push them a little bit. So the data gives me that kind of information. That's how I use it to inform for the students. But if I know that, it also means next year, she's probably not going to need to be in geometry support. Just put her in geometry. So she's going to be with a higher level student so the teacher can focus on them a little bit differently. So it helps me do that. It helps me with scheduling. And if the student is scoring in, I think one of the cases, I forgot the content area with your student, he's in like the 90-something percentile in achievement and the 99th percentile in growth. That means he did better than most of the people who took the test, and he grew more than most of the people who took the test at the same level he was at. So I got to make sure in 10th grade, I get him in classes where he can definitely be challenged. Because he definitely doesn't need to sit in a class that's I need that growth to continue. That's what it tells me. So that's how it helps empower you. Use the data to encourage your student with a growth mindset. So what that means is share it with them. And we need to do that. We're going to do that as a school. You're here. I don't care if they grew necessarily. Your achievement was at a 55%. That's really good. That means you did better than most of the students who took this. So what is going to be some of the things you want to work on to continue to grow? What's something you did not get? What's something you need help in? How do you think if you take this test again in the spring, you're going to do better? What does the teacher need to do to help you? So all of that's they're going to create that on that goal setting sheet that we're going to do. And then I'm going to hold the teachers accountable for it. So let's look at some of your kids who did not grow. So currently, what are you doing to address them? And then I'm going to show them some ways in which they can plan for that instruction too, because we have to build that for them. So again, good questions. If your student is strong in literature but low in informational text, that means I might need to support them in reading a newspaper, showing them how to read a newspaper, or giving them something that will encourage them to continue to grow in that area. If they're stronger in informational text or not in literature, maybe encouraging them to read literary text that's going to get them to grow.
So
if they're stronger in reading but weaker in math, again, continue to grow that reading.
So in Anthony's case, so he has to stay in the writer's workshop for the entire year?
The class changes into Lit Comp 9.
So he does get, okay, because Ms. Taylor just told me they get him out of here.
Yeah, it's Lit Comp 9 in the second semester. It's not going to be writer's workshop again. So the class changes and it's a different set of standards. So it's going to be the same teacher, the same kids, but it's a different set of standards. So it needs to look different too. Writer's Workshop doesn't have the same curriculum resources as Lit Comp 9 does. It has different.
So we can talk, he gotta stay with the same teacher.
Not necessarily.
Please.
We'll have a conversation. Because right now, I'm aware that there's some gaps there. All right, and then we have other supports as well in some of those courses, particularly in some of the support classes. We do have some software instructional supports to help with things like building up math skills and like IXL and things like that, which our teachers do use, but it's not a curriculum. It's something they should just use as support to build skills and then teach the STEM. Again, setting those goals, asking our children to talk to them about and their teacher to find one or two focus areas that they can work on. And when you break it down by math or reading or language uses, it breaks it down by domain. So it might be they're stronger in vocabulary but weaker in literature. So it helps the teachers help set some realistic goals for the students in that area too. Encourage this child to read. That's something, again, that we don't do enough, but we also definitely don't do it when they get in high school. Some of our kids do them. We have a lot of readers at our school. They come in and grab books for fun. Some of these thick books sitting up on these shelves, which is great, but we need to encourage it with more students. So the more they read, the stronger they're going to get academically. That's just proof. Data proof. Any questions about the scores, any of the data you see on that sheet that you need some support in? The longer they've been in the system, the more data we have of them. So for your students, it's going to be, they only take twice. But it gets me some good information.
May I have my son's, if you have it?
Don't have his, because he didn't take math, because he's in the 11th grade. Mm-hmm. He didn't take math. Yeah. So he's doing currently an EOC. So he's doing our Georgia Milestones end of course assessment. Today he took part 1 of American Literature, and we're going to do parts 2 and 3 tomorrow. For AMLIT, I don't think he has any other ones. However, your daughter in the second semester, she'll be taking Algebra Concepts and Connections in the course test. So she'll do that in May, or late April, beginning of May.
My son has that his turn.
He's got
Algebra as well.
this, algebra or advanced algebra.
Oh.
He might have advanced algebra. But I know coming from another card, I know there was some discrepancies in just his transcript from what he took in Jamaica. A lot of times it just doesn't transfer over as much, so there's some things there. Georgia Milestones has historically counted as the final exam, and that's 20% of the student's final grade. So in those classes, it does count for 20% of their final grade. So whatever he gets in part 1, in parts 2 and 3, that will average out to be 20% of his grade. If the student does not attend or they don't finish the whole test, they're going to receive an incomplete on their report card, and they'll get an opportunity during the next grading period to make it up in what we call a mid-month administration session. They usually get about 2 or 3 opportunities to do that until we put a 0 in for the EOC grade. That rarely happens, but it does happen sometimes. So we encourage students to, if they miss it, please do the makeup.
I noticed on the schedule there's schedule for makeup test. Is it right after?
Yes, so we do, we'll finish American Lit tomorrow, but we'll also have some makeup sessions on Friday, and then we'll have some next week. So we have like 2 built-in makeup days, but we also do rolling makeups. So while we're testing biology, we might have a room in which we test kids who missed American Lit too at the same time. Parent resources, a good one, particularly for your student who is not taking a end of course test. There's a thing called Experience Online Testing Georgia, and I'm going to post this to our school website. If you just Google Experience Online Testing Georgia, it basically gives you a simulation of what the Georgia Milestones testing platform looks like. So it allows your student to kind of use some of the tools that and kind of get familiar with just how the test looks. some of the tools and drop down menus, what some of the test questions look like. They won't be test questions, but they're similarly formatted, so the student just has a better familiarity with it. And again, like I said, this will be posted on our school website, and you can click right there. But if you just type in a Google search, Experience Online Test in Georgia, you'll have access to it. They are redoing the Georgia Department of Education website. I also know that if you go on the Georgia Department of Education website and you look under Georgia Milestones, you'll see there's online study guides for students and parents to look at for all of the tested subjects, and there's also what are called achievement level descriptors. So your student will get a grade. They basically get a number grade, but the number grade falls into 4 categories. It's a beginning learner, which basically means they did not meet the expectations of state standards. Developing, they came close, but they still did not meet the expectation for what a student should have achieved based on this test in that course. Proficient means they met the expectation of the standards based on that test in that content area. Distinguished, they excelled. They did better than me. They did exceptional. We get graded on that as a school. So our CCRPI data is based on, we get like a half a point for every student who scores developing. We get a full point for every student who scores proficient, and a 1.5 points if they score distinguished. Depending on the student, each student gets put in a subgroup category, and each subgroup has an expectation of how they should perform. So for instance, if your student is Black, student with disability, and an English language learner, and labeled as economically disadvantaged, they go into 4 categories. So if that student is a distinguished learner, they get a 1.5. That's going to help us in 4 different categories. Flip side, if they score beginning, they will hurt us because they get a 0 in 4 different categories. So our goal is to look at all of our kids, look at our subgroup data, and go, where are we doing well, where are we not? And what we've tended to notice currently at our school, when we look at a lot of, depends on the content area, I'm just use map data. Our map data show this year, so far, our students who are gifted, they grew. And you might think because they're gifted, they're gonna always grow. No, they typically don't. Because they're gifted, they tend to struggle being challenged. So they don't tend to grow. They might achieve, but they don't grow. But this year they did. Our English language learners grew tremendously this year. So I'm really proud of that. In reading, they're doing really good in reading. Who we really got to work on is our students with disabilities. That's who didn't grow based on our map data.
Classification of gifted, can you?
Yes, it's students who score on a couple of measures, including MAP is one. If they score in the upper, like 96% and above, no, I think at the beginning, let me back up. I want to say initially for MAP, it's got to be like over 90-something%. I'm not going to lie about the number, I'm trying to get it right, because there's a couple of tests. But MAP has a lower threshold, but it's over 90%. So if they score over 90% in achievement, that kind of in 9th grade and 10th grade, that means they're ready to be tested further for gifted. There's a creativity test and another test that they take, and if they score in the upper levels, like a 96% in a couple of batteries of those assessments, it means they're really, really high in certain areas of creativity and thinking. So they get labeled as gifted, and that means there's some funding, and also the teachers that are put in front of them are supposed to be certified to teach students like them. Because that means they should be challenged usually at a higher level, but also given a lot of opportunity to demonstrate their own interests and needs in a different way. And sometimes they can be the most challenging students to teach because they can get bored with you real quick.
Mhm.
So they want something different, but they also kind of want to do it their way sometimes too. But they're all different. My youngest son just tested for gifted. I was hesitant to do it again because he did it before. He gets real anxious when he takes tests. He gets frustrated because he wants, I want to, he starts to melt down. He wants to do really well, but he just melts down. So I'm like, man, I don't know if I want him to take it again, but his scores were really high that last time. He just missed it, so I said, go ahead and take it again. He qualified this time, so
Nice.
it's just, but what it does is we're trying to identify more students for gifted. We're using some different measures than we have before to try to increase the population of students for gifted, so our numbers can increase because they should increase. We're probably there's no problem about it. We're under identifying our gifted population at our school. And those are the kids we want to definitely challenge. They should be taking our advanced placement classes. But not just them. Our advanced placement classes are open to anybody who wants it. If they want it, they take it. We don't gatekeep. Testing, all of our testing is done here. Makeup days are, like I said, they're kind of rolling. Makeup days, if the student has a testing accommodation, they will be provided. So if they have an IEP, and if the IEP states that they have qualified for small group settings in extended time, they get that. So that means they'll be in a room with a smaller number of students, and they can have like time and a half to finish the test. What can't happen is the first time they get a testing accommodation can't be during the milestones test. So it should be something they're used to doing all the time. None of your students are access students, so I'm not gonna waste your time on access testing. I will just let you know that it is a test that we give our students who data shows that they need added support in English language composition. And those are the 4 tests they take. So they take listening, speaking, reading, and writing. For our school, this is one of our growing and biggest populations of students. So we have roughly 1,200 students, about 300 of our students. So basically, what's that, 25% are English language learners. And they come from all over the world. Spanish, but we also have students who, we got Pashto, we got Swahili's our second highest group, I think. We got kids from everywhere. And we have kids who speak English, but their English dialect is different. So the English, they have like patois. So I know as a former teacher, I taught a lot of students who were from Jamaica, but they were English language learners just simply because they spoke English from Jamaica. So you get that too. But this lets us know, and what we hope to do is grow these students so eventually they test out. They won't need to be in an English support class, but even though they transition out, we still are supposed to monitor them up to 2 years after they transition out. So again, they take a test, they get put in different tiers, and they keep testing. Don't do that because that's old. I'm trying to think of another. I left off one. So another test that all of our students we hope to do. All your students before they graduate Stallman High School should be in a pathway. So that could be entrepreneurship. It could be computer science principles. It could be early childhood education. It could be audio, video, technology, and film. We have a lot of pathways that we offer here. At the end of the pathway sequence of courses, each of those students will sit and take an end of pathway assessment. If they take the end of pathway assessment, then they get certification or can get certification for different, for finishing that pathway. And we get added points for that if the students pass, because it shows that they're ready to do these kinds of professions outside of Stone Mountain High School, which is good. So we're trying to grow that. Probably our most successful pathway right now is probably early childhood education. I think it's probably historically been one of our our more successful one. And we're trying to, again, grow the number of students who pass in the other areas as well. Again, we have advanced placement testing. That will be in the spring, roughly in the first week of May for AP courses. Currently, we have AP World History, AP US History, AP Literature. What am I missing? We're going to have next year, we're trying to grow either AP Statistics. We're going to increase and accelerate our math offerings. So what we're going to start to do for our students who we know that their data shows they could take more math faster, we're going to just go ahead and front load them with math. So they'll take algebra, but what we've typically done, they'll take algebra one semester, no math second semester, and then they take math again in 10th grade. We're not going to do that. We're going to give them algebra, geometry, then 10th grade, we're going to give them advanced algebra, pre-cal, so by the time they're in 11th grade, they can take calculus and higher levels of math. They can do that here, or they can do that at college. But we have kids who are in our 12th grade who should be in higher levels of math. We didn't schedule them, we didn't accelerate their scheduling enough. So we're changing that. We will offer an AP in science. It will probably be in biology. That's coming. We want to have at least one advanced placement course in all content areas. We're going to add AP language. So we'll have AP literature and AP language for English language arts. We'll probably have at least 3 AP classes in social studies, which would be AP African American Studies, AP World History, and AP US History. And math, trying to build back up to either AP Statistics or AP Calculus. So those are coming. If we can get our math up, then we'll also build in AP Physics. That's something we hope to do. But that's going to take some years, because I got to build the math up in those students for AP Physics. Yeah, but that's going to take some time. But we have the group of kids. I think we can do it. Just we have to schedule. We have to start scheduling in an asset-based schedule. So what I mean by that is we tend to focus on how we build our schedule to support our students who are struggling, instead of how we build our schedule to support our kids who are flying and who are doing well. We got to do more of that. We don't do enough of that. So we already know, coming from the 8th grade, we already know with their map data, this group of kids, they're ready to go. So let's go ahead and schedule them for some high-level courses. For instance, if they're scoring high in math and ELA, we're going to probably go ahead and put them in biology in 9th grade instead of environmental science. That means they can take higher level sciences in 11th and 12th grade instead of some of the things they take now which they don't need. Be honest, we have 12th graders who are taking physical science here. My son took physical science in 8th grade. So we gotta build up the level of rigor, but also the support for our kids so they can be prepared to take those courses later. My goal is, based on where our schedule is with block scheduling, our students are going to graduate with more credits than they need. They only need 24 credits. So if you take 4 classes each semester at Stone Mountain High School, you're going to have 32 credits. You don't need 32 credits. So when you're in 11th grade or 12th grade, I need you either at the Cab School of Technology North or South learning a trade, or I need you at Georgia State working on your college diploma, one or the other. So we can do that. Any questions for me on any assessments or anything else you would like to know? Use that map data when you have conferences with your teachers. Use that data to have that start those conversations. Use the data to, I love how you mentioned that it's tough to differentiate for all those different levels of students in the class, and it is. But we gotta make sure all our students are growing, because if they're not growing, you're slipping, and I don't want them slipping. So we gotta challenge them all. Gotta support them all.
Yeah, cause I'm doing, Anthony's math, in his grade in math class, I think he's bored in his, class. He has like a 85.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think he has all B's, and I keep telling him you should have A's. But the thing about him, he self-corrects stuff. Like if I say, Anthony, you this and this, and you did that, and he, what? And then that tells me he can do it. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Well, that's good, because if it was me, when my mom said something like, "No, you could do better than," no, I didn't want to hear it. So as soon as she started saying I could be, I didn't want to hear it. I turned it off the whole time. But it's true. You just don't want it. I don't know. You just don't want to hear it from your mom. I'm getting it. I don't know. Well, I appreciate you coming. Again, hopefully that can serve. It helps us a lot because it lets us know. I'll give you an example. We've always scheduled for support in math here. Math was always our level of struggle at Stone Mountain. When I got here, I looked at the data, it was math. Then I started noticing our math scores were getting better. So I was like, oh, this is good. But they also had support classes for math. Okay. And then I noticed our 9th grade and 10th grade lit and American literature scores, our literacy scores were dropping. Our reading scores were dropping. I'm like, well, we don't have support classes for reading. So this year we said, let's build support classes for reading. So if they're scoring in a certain area based on map data in reading, let's give them, for the lower kids, let's give them reading. And for the kids who are a little bit above that, let's give them writer's workshop. And then they take Lit Comp 9. Because Lit Comp Literature 9, 9th grade literature, is probably the most failed class here at Stone Mountain High School. 9th grade literature and 9th grade algebra. They're the highest failed classes. So let's give them that support. This time last year, when we looked at the map data from fall to winter, our growth numbers as a school was 32%. So 32% of our kids grew. This year, just by having a writer's workshop, we're at 59% growth. That's huge. So when I said that at a meeting about MAP the other day with other principals, people were like, wow, how y'all do that? I said, well, we use MAP data. We schedule these kids in writer's workshop and da-da-da-da-da. And they're like, man, I didn't even think to do that. You know, so it gave them some ideas of things that work. And that's good, because that's been a real drag for us as our reading scores. But it's showing that our kids are doing better at reading this year. So overall, not everyone, but overall. So I'll take it. I'll take it.
Well done.
I will take it. Thank you. It's trial and error. We try to get better. We don't do everything right, but we try to get better. We definitely do that.